Welcome to Take Off Your Shoes. My name is Reverend Marie Duquette. I'm an ordained minister in the Lutheran tradition, and I believe that where my story, your story, and God's story meet, there is holy ground.
The Holy Gospel according to Luke, the 12th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said, "Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be dressed for action and have your lamps lit. Be like those who are waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet, so that they may open the door for him as soon as he comes and knocks. Blessed are those slaves whom the master finds alert when he comes. Truly I tell you, he will fasten his belt and have them sit down to eat, and he will come and serve them. If he comes during the middle of the night or near dawn and finds them so, blessed are those slaves. But know this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. If one were not careful and did not consider that God is like a good parent, one who would say, "Do not be afraid, little flock," one whose heart's desire is to give you the kingdom. If one were not mindful that this is who God is, the to-do list in today's gospel might induce anxiety, if not panic. In a mere 8 verses, we hear these directions. Sell your possessions, give alms, that is food and money, to the poor. Make purses, the not wearing out kind. Be dressed, which presumes you have clothing. Have your lamps lit, which presumes you have matches or flint or batteries or electricity or solar power. Open the door, which presumes you have a door to open, a home to live in, shelter to separate you from the elements. Be alert, which presumes you have rested, that you were able to rest, that you were neither too cold, too warm, too worried, too hungry, or in too much pain. Be ready. Jesus is coming at an hour you do not expect. It's a lot. Just reading this list has me imagining Jesus at the door in the middle of the night, and me and Deb standing on this side of it, me looking over her shoulder, because you know, when it comes to opening the door in the middle of the night to an unexpected guest, she would absolutely insist on going first. She says, "Who is it?" He responds, "Jesus." She turns to me. I say, "Ask him again." She says, "I'm sorry, what did you say your name was?" He says, "Jesus of Nazareth." We turn to one another. She says, "What should I do?" I say, "Keep talking to him while I sell all of our possessions, make a purse, get dressed, and turn on my light." "But it's Jesus," she said. "What am I supposed to say? Do you mind hanging out on the porch for a few hours, or better yet, days?" I say, "It's Jesus. I'm sure he'll be nice about it." Then bam, she opens the door and life as we know it is over. Which is, of course, a good thing. Because after all, it's Jesus. This is an easy way to hear today's gospel as a holy to-do list that is both imminent and flexible in timing. Things we are planning to do. Some of these things we may have already begun. Take the lamps, for example. We have lamps, lights, ways of breaking the darkness so that we can see and not trip over all our possessions that we are in the midst of giving away. We have batteries, of course, and candles. Boy, do we have candles. For who knows when the power grid might fail or a tired driver might veer off the road and take out a power line. We are ready to fight back the darkness, even if it does mean that our insistence on electrical lighting everywhere disrupts animals and insects and ecosystems. We may have once walked in darkness, but we have seen a great light. We can get dressed any minute now. We have clothes in the closet, in the drawer, in the dryer, in the washing machine, and darn it, we'll need to rinse those again. We have clothes hanging on hooks near the door, the front door, the back door. We have clothes on the chair that we don't want people to know are on the chair, but it's awfully convenient. Occasionally, we even have clothes on the floor, and if we were pressed, if Jesus was at the door, we might shake that off. We can get dressed. A purse that won't wear out. Well, yes, kinda. I mean, none of them really wear out now, do they? Or maybe it's because we have more than one. Does a backpack or fanny pack count as a purse? How big of a purse are we talking about here? And how many pockets does it need? Because you know, when it comes to pockets, we have pockets. Alms to the poor. Yes, we've done that. We have canceled checks and e-statements and a bag of groceries we're planning to take to the food pantry. We alms, we give, we do. And yet, do you sense the anxiety even as we know we have too done the to-dos? What's that about? The anxiety. Could it be that we know that the list is not the point? And since we believe that Jesus loves us, really, this we know, right? Why would we hesitate for even a minute and not throw the door wide and welcome him inside? I suggest it might be fear. Fear of not doing enough. Fear of living with a sense of scarcity instead of abundance. Fear that we have forgotten that we have what we need as it was given to us by our Creator if only we would work to protect it, not just for ourselves, but for all. We have all that the world needs if we stepped away from the systems that charge people for things that should be free, like water. And instead, invested our time, treasure, and talent in making sure clean water remains clean. How many plastic bottles of water must we consume before we realize that buying them is contributing to our own demise and showing our appreciation not to the one who provided the water to begin with, but to the corporations who bottle it, sell it, and whose factories even pollute the natural water, which ensures what? That there will always be a demand for bottled water. It is a hard cycle, and the truth is every single one of us participates in it. Robin Wall Kimmerer, author of Braiding Sweetgrass and more recently, The Service Fairy, studies indigenous practices and ecosystems. In The Service Fairy, she explains that all flourishing is mutual, and that by gifting one another with time, talent, labor, gifts from the garden and farm, we participate in a system that was divinely created. One that not only makes sure that everyone has enough, but that in the ongoing gifting, we get deeper, more trusting relationships with one another. Relationships that become the treasure where our heart is. 2 stories in these books: Braiding Sweetgrass, The Service Fairy. 2 stories in these books serve to remind me of how I can live more in keeping with God's plan and less bound to the human-made structures that sacrifice relationship and natural resources for individual gain and wealth. The first is in Braiding Sweetgrass. Some of you have read this, I know. It is the story at the very beginning of the book about strawberries. Listen. My father loves wild strawberries, so for Father's Day, my mother would almost always make him strawberry shortcake. She baked the crusty shortcakes and whipped the heavy cream, but we kids were responsible for the berries. We each got an old jar or 2 and spent the Saturday before the celebration out in the fields, taking forever to fill them as more and more berries ended up in our mouths. Finally, we returned home and poured them out on the kitchen table to sort out the bugs. I'm sure we missed some, but Dad never mentioned the extra protein. In fact, he thought wild strawberry shortcake was the best possible present, or so he had us convinced. It was a gift that could never be bought. As children raised by strawberries, we were probably unaware that the gift of berries was from the fields themselves, not from us. Our gift was time and attention and care and red-stained fingers, heart berries indeed. Later on, she writes this: farmers around us grew a lot of strawberries and frequently hired kids to pick them. My siblings and I would ride our bikes a long way to Crandall's farm to pick berries to earn spending money. A dime for every quart we picked. But Mrs. Crandall was a persnickety overseer. She stood at the edge of the field in her bib apron and instructed us how to pick and warned us not to crush any berries. She had other rules too. Those berries belong to me, she said, not to you. I don't want to see you kids eating my berries. I knew the difference. In the fields behind my house, the berries belonged to themselves. At this lady's road stand, she sold them for 60 cents a quart. It was quite a lesson in economics. We'd have to spend most of our wages if we wanted to ride home with berries in our bike baskets. Of course, those berries were 10 times bigger than our wild ones, but not nearly as good. I don't believe we ever put those farm berries in Dad's shortcake. It wouldn't have felt right. The second story I want to share with you is from The Service Fairy, which was published just last year, same author. Listen. As the berries plunked into my bucket, I was thinking about what I'd do with them all. I'd drop some off for friends and neighbors, and I'd certainly fill the freezer for Juneberry muffins in February. This problem of deciding what to do with abundance reminds me of a report shared by Lewis Hyde in his book, The Gift. He observes that a hunter had brought home a sizable kill, far too much to be eaten by his family. The researcher asked how he would store the excess. Smoking and drying technologies were well known. Storing was possible. The hunter was puzzled by the question, store the meat? Why would he do that? Instead, he sent out an invitation to a feast, and soon the neighboring families were gathered around his fire until every last morsel was consumed. This seemed like maladaptive behavior to the anthropologist, who asked again, given the uncertainty of meat in the forest, Why didn't the hunter store the meat for himself, which is what the economic system of his home culture would predict? Store my meat? I store my meat in the belly of my brother, replied the hunter. In a gift economy, wealth is understood as having enough to share, and the practice for dealing with abundance is to give it away. In fact, status is determined not by how much one accumulates, but by how much one gives away. She goes on to talk about an indigenous practice known as a potlatch, not to be confused with a potluck. Traditional potlatches are gift-giving celebrations in which possessions are given away with lavish generosity to mark meaningful life events. The ceremonial feasts display the wealth of the givers, enhance their prestige, and affirm connections with a whole web of relations. The gifts received are likely to be given away at the next ceremony, keeping wealth in motion and cementing mutual bonds. This ritualized redistribution of wealth was banned by colonial governments under the influence of missionaries in the 1800s. Potlatches were seen as contrary to the civilized values of accumulation and undermined the notions of individual property and advancement essential to assimilation to the colonial agenda. It's interesting. We make jokes about regifting gifts that do not suit our own tastes, right? You can regift a gift, just make sure you take the tag off it. In traditional potlatches, regifting is the norm. Sharing gifts openly and often is a way of life. Regifting is celebrated, not a way of getting rid of what we do not want. An economy of gifting is when people give one another from their own land, from their own kitchens, from their own skills, not just occasionally, but as an ongoing practice. This is vastly different than an economic system that encourages consumerism, in which we each must pay for everything we have, which encourages competition and a sense of I instead of we. I must always strive to get more, to get ahead. Then I can be generous with the things I don't want or don't need anymore, and you can be grateful to me. Today's gospel begins with an urging from our divine parent who reminds us, where your treasure is, your heart will be also. I think we might all agree, in theory at least, that our treasure is in one another. Our treasure is in community. It's in the human bonds that hold us when we are weak or grieving, and in the love that flows between us like blood through our veins. And I know by these things that keep showing up on my desk that farmers in particular are well acquainted with the practice of gifting from their abundance. At my first call in farmland, I got vegetables on my desk all the time. Oh, the zucchini. At my second call, which was at a different area but still farms, I got apples and fruit. But I always got something from farmers. They know how it's supposed to work. Still, I suggest that moving beyond neighborly giving to gifting those beyond our immediate circles and neighborhoods can be a better act of aligning our treasure with our heart. At the end of this month, our two churches, Trinity Herkimer and Zion New Hartford, are gathering for our fourth joint worship at the Frankfurt Marina. We will worship together, picnic together, and play together. I suggest we use this opportunity to practice our own potlatch which is slightly different and will be in addition to the potluck. A potlatch would be a gift that each person would take home, not consuming it as part of it. I invite everyone who will attend to carefully choose a gift from your own abundance to take for someone else who will be there. You don't need to know who will receive it because they will be choosing the gift off the table of offering themselves. Your gift should not be something you wanted to get rid of anyway, but something you treasure yourself. Food from your garden, canned goods you put up yourself, a piece of embroidery from your own hands, a particular book that had great meaning to you, a cherished stone or arrowhead you found on a hike, homemade dog treats, a knitted hat or scarf, a pocket knife, a gift with a story that gives it meaning. The possibilities are endless. The only criteria is that you choose something thoughtful. This is not a white elephant gift. This is generosity in action. This is a gift that deepens relationships. This is a gift that recognizes your abundance and believes that where your treasure is with someone else, there your heart will be also. And that believes that our treasure is in one another. Therefore, if we are to accumulate anything in this life, we are to accumulate people in ever-expanding circles. It is to believe that when we practice reciprocity and gifting as a way of nurturing connections to one another, when Jesus does show up, we will fling wide the door and say, "Come on in. We were just sharing a feast that was first given to us by your Father that we would love now to share with you."
Thank you for listening to Take Off Your Shoes. Let me send you out now with this blessing. May God give you the grace never to sell yourself short, grace to risk something big for something good, and grace to remember the world is now too dangerous for anything but the truth and too small for anything but love.